But in the spring of 2012, you start seeing there's your Uranus-Pluto square. So it gets tighter and tighter, more intense. This is the summer of 2012. And then it goes away. And this goes on, I'm just going to tell you, we don't have to watch it. This goes on back and forth until 2015, that Pluto-Uranus square. Okay, so what does all that mean? I'll give you an example of a manifestation in the real world that I would be looking for to understand these things. This is the first one is going to be the Saturn-Uranus opposition. One of the things we learned about transit, what you saw is that they did it a couple of times. They'll come close, then they'll get exact, then they'll go away, and this kind of a thing. The first one of those gives us an idea of what it's about. So the next May, June, whatever the first Uranus-Pluto was, is an important time to understand what is that Pluto-Uranus square really going to be about, even though a lot of what's happening right now is clearly already that energy. These things don't start on a day. But interestingly, sometimes they do. This is the Uranus-Saturn one, the exact 5 dates for the Uranus-Saturn. Anybody recognize the first date?
Election.
It's astonishing to an astrologer to see that. Archetypally, the Uranus archetype, there's no president ever who has incorporated the Uranus archetype better than Obama. No matter what you think about these people, he's irrelevant right now. Multiracial, upstart, these are all key Aquarius Uranus words. A man of ideas, change was his motto. He used the internet more than anyone ever before. He was hooked to his BlackBerry, remember all of that? Revolutionary, different future. These are all key words that come from the Aquarius textbook that have been associated with him strongly when he started. And McCain was, you know, the oldest ever candidate. He was literally frozen in one arm from his war wound, which is such a Saturn image you can't even make it up. You know, his military career, very Saturn. You know, the whole thing about discipline and those kind of things. So sometimes the stuff is very literal. And it's amazing to see that. And sometimes you also see it in other places. The literal split of those two, the best image I've ever found is this one. Look at the bottom. Look at the Saturn symbolism in the bottom, that business suit guy with the class ring and the briefcase. And at the top, this multiracial, sort of cool dude. And it says, the future of work. And it says on the right, it says, this was right in the middle of the Saturn-Uranus transit. This was the front of Time magazine. And it says, throw away your briefcase. You're not going to the office. You can kiss your benefits goodbye too, and your new boss won't look much like your old one. There's no longer a ladder, and you may never get to retire, but there is a world of opportunity if you figure out a new path. 10 lessons for succeeding in the new American workplace. I'm not making this stuff up. It's right there.
When was that?
I don't know. You can, if you email me, I'll find it for you. I have the original somewhere at home. So, Pluto-Uranus cycle, this is the big one. This is really, really big. Let me put this in perspective for you. Outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. In the last century, we had 2 outer planet transits. Pluto-Uranus conjunction in 1965 through 67, which I'll get to, and Neptune-Uranus conjunction in the early 90s. 2 in the whole century. The next one, outer planet conjunction, is in about 120 years. These are rare events that are huge shifts in the human collective unconscious. That's what we're talking about here, as I showed you. So what is Pluto and Uranus about? Well, this kind of says it all, and if you look at the newspapers these days, that says a lot. But let me show you first the history. So the last time this happened was in 65, 67. Again, that was they aligned once in the 20th century. And they align very rarely, I think every 500 years or something. And again, these cycles are something that Rick Tarnas talks about a lot. So 65 to 67. Need I tell you how revolutionary those years were? I don't. Okay, we had, you know, marches on Selma, we had women's rights, we had the hippie movement, we had anti-war movement, we had people taking to the streets. Guess what all the kids are saying in Occupy movements? They're all saying, this is our 1960s. Literally, that's what they're saying. Not all of them, but many of them. There's a feeling now we have something to fight for. We have something to get angry about. We have something that can radicalize us. That we have something to get us out on the street. This is big stuff. I think the Occupy movement is by far the strongest indication of this that we've seen so far. So it's not just something we can blow off. What's interesting about the Occupy movement, actually, yeah, I'll talk about it now because it's coming up here, is that if you think about it, what are they saying? Who's the leader? There is no leader. Who made it? What do they want? We don't really know. The point is that it's about radicalization, about breaking down. It's not about building up. We're not in a building phase. We're in a deconstructing phase. It suddenly makes sense when you think in those terms. And they're actually expressing something that many people are feeling. The Tea Party belongs there too. It doesn't matter what you agree with or don't agree with. It's about what the phenomenon is. Less structure is what the Tea Party wants. Less government, less structure. So what happens is that these two aligned, and then, which again Ray Grassi has called that the seeding of the revolution. And what's happened since is that, as I showed you before, in 2012 to 2015, I just showed you that in real time, right? You all saw that. They are now squaring off. They are now coming to the next, or to the first tension since the 60s, which is a square between Uranus and Pluto. That is big and that is dramatic. So that's, to me, there are other outer planet transits going on, but that is by far the overriding theme. This is really big stuff. Yes?
Did that happen before historically?
Has that happened before historically? Yes, it has. The last time that the Uranus and Pluto conjoined, I don't remember in my head when that was, but it was, I'm trying to remember what was going on. I just don't remember. I don't want to give you false information, but it was equally big to the 60s. Again, Tarnas has these cycles. And by the way, the previous square, they squared off, the previous time was World War II. I'm not saying this is a war coming. That's not what I'm saying. We have the Age of Aquarius as a backdrop. It's a whole different story. Things do not repeat themselves astrologically. It's always a different pattern. But the archetypal appearance is the same. It's important. So we're not predicting what's going to happen here. We're trying to understand the phenomenon.